Hola, my name is Paola and I am in Los Angeles in my very small kitchen in Highland Park. One of my favorite memories growing up was eating tamales with my family. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I married my husband who is Mexican American. I was introduced to a world of tamales as a centerpiece, which is not something I grew up with. And I just thought how great it is to make tamal the main dish. So the very first ingredient that you need for tamales, and really the most important and the base of our entire cuisine, is masa. So masa is unique nixtamalized corn, and you can start with like dried corn like this one. This is a beautiful corn from Oaxaca called elotillo. My fat of choice is duck fat. I really love the flavor of duck, but traditionally, of course, pork lard is used. And the way you start is by adding your lard or your duck fat in this case, and I'm going about 2-to-1 ratio of masa to fat. I'm gonna go ahead and add some salt to it, and then I'm gonna use some baking powder so that the tamales are fluffy. So I'm gonna go ahead and whip this until it's creamy and fluffy. Now you're gonna start adding some of the masa, and you're gonna go ahead and add it just in some, chunks. And also this can be done in a stand mixer. My mom and other women in Mexico make it with their bare hands. So you also don't even need a mixer. You can just, work the masa into the lard with your hands if you're comfortable with that. But if you wanna keep it a little bit more smooth here, you can do that with a mixer. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some of my chicken stock. You can use vegetable broth, you can use, chicken broth, whatever you have in hand. I'm gonna work a little bit more to make sure that the masa is very hydrated before I add the rest of my stock. You're always looking for like a fairly thick consistency in your masa preparada. One of my favorite feelings for tamales is always looking for a vegetarian option, and I've been really loving oyster mushrooms. I love the flavor that develop when they're browned and crispy. Reminds me a lot of chicken. I roast them in the oven and they develop this beautiful brown crust that goes really great with the mole encacahuatado. Drizzle some olive oil. Just want to make sure you coat them nicely there. Gonna go ahead and use my hands for that. Make sure that they're all coated in the oil, and gonna add a little bit of salt as well. Go ahead and add a little bit of pepper, and I'm gonna put this in the oven, and then they'll be ready for the filling. So before you start making the filling for your tamales, it's actually a great opportunity to soak your corn husks if you're using them. And you just wanna put them in water, like hot water, super soft and pliable, and just you can forget about them and until you're ready to make the tamales. And the mushrooms now should be golden and crispy around the edges, and but also still a little bit meaty and soft. We want them to absorb some of the mole. One of my favorite moles is the Mole Encacahuatado. It's such an easier mole compared to very complex moles that you see a lot in southern Mexico and also central Mexico. And I just love how approachable this mole is, and I think it works beautiful with the oyster mushrooms. You add some peanuts to a dry cast iron skillet. You can also use a comal, but it's very important that it's dry. You don't need to fry this. You're just basically looking to toast these ones. And then you're gonna add some garlic cloves, and this is all gonna be pureed, so no need to mince anything. I have some allspice over here. I'm gonna add a couple of those, and just some cinnamon, some Mexican canela, which I love the flavor of. And we're just gonna allow this to get a little bit toasty and aromatic. And you can see that the peanuts now are toasted. I'm gonna go ahead and remove them from the pan, and I'm gonna add them to the blender where they're gonna be pureed with the next batch of ingredients. Go ahead and add now the tomatoes. Also gonna add the quartered onion. And just a tad of oil. I wanna make sure that we get some black spots all over them before we add them to the peanuts. And now that the tomatoes are blackened in some spots and also the onions, you know, we really want to develop that flavor with some of this caramelization going on. Once you're there, you're going to add the dried guajillos. We're going to scatter them around. Lower the heat, and we're going to add some of the chicken broth. Crank up the heat a little bit because we're looking to hydrate the chiles to soften them up. And then we're going to go ahead and also add some of the chipotle en adobo, some salt, finish it with some pepper. You just want to go ahead and cover it, bring it to a boil, and you're gonna let it simmer until the chiles are super soft. And now that the tomatoes and the chiles have been in this broth, you see that they're soft and then they're ready to be pureed, and it's exactly what we're looking for. I'm gonna go ahead and carefully transfer this to the blender with the peanuts. There was some allspice and canela there as well. So now I'm gonna carefully add the liquid onto the blender. You're gonna go ahead and just remove the top of your lid here, and that will allow some of the steam to escape. And make sure you cover it with a towel here. We're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of oil. All right, so this is a very happy mole that it's just bubbling. What you want it to go a little bit nuts at the beginning, and then you're gonna lower your heat so that it simmers happily. And we're gonna let this go for about 10 minutes just to reduce it slightly. So when ready to assemble, you wanna make sure you get your husks out of the hot water. And I just use a pair of tongs here. Before assembling the tamales, it's a great moment to set up your steamer, and I just used one of those pasta cooker pots, or really you can set up any pot with a steamer. What I did, I just filled up the bottom with water, enough water to get me through an hour of cooking. And then a very important step is to line up your steamer with some corn husks. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on and let it simmer for a bit while I assemble the tamales. So the first thing you want to do is start with your corn husk, and you want the narrow end to be facing the top. The first step is going to be the masa preparada. So I'm not measuring anything just because I made so many tamales. Spread it all across the corn husk, and you want to leave at the top dry because that's going to be what's standing up when you fold it. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of mushrooms, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of the mole. And then what we're going to do is just go ahead and fold it. So you do that by meeting the sides here. You want to go ahead and fold it like this. And now you can see that the water is definitely steaming in my pot here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add these ones that I've already assembled. And you wanna do it by stirring them up. Add a kitchen towel, a clean kitchen towel. And if you have 2 or 3 of them, that's great. Go ahead and cover the entire pot. Put on a lid and let them steam for about 45 minutes. So this moment when you'll see a lot of steam come out, and this is super duper hot. So I would recommend that you use a pair of tongs or something to remove it so you don't burn yourself. I'm gonna go ahead and set the cooked tamales on this plate. Ta-da! And now for the big reveal. After you work so hard preparing the masa, spreading the masa, seasoning it, cooking all of your fillings and your guisados, you can finally enjoy this beautiful tamal. Pour some of the leftover mole encacahuatado that I have, and I think that'll just do like take it to the next level here, we normally don't put any cotija on our tamales, but I think it just adds, you know, here a really nice contrast and just a really good bite. Well, I can't wait to taste these tamales. I have some friends who are nurses and they were working at the COVID units, and got the honor of feeding them for a few days, and I made a big batch of this for them. So delicious. The mushrooms are super meaty but very crispy still, and the mole is just like the right amount of heat. Javi, would you like to try?
Sure, I would love to.
What do you think?
They're spicy. You know, there's another joke in like the Mexican kitchen that like they say that someone was angry when they were making a dish if it's really spicy. I don't think you were angry, but it's one of those dishes that you kind of can't believe that you made it yourself, because it's delicious. So awesome.
When making tamales, always keep in mind that it's gonna be like a day-long affair. So from picking up the ingredients, making the guisados, making the masa preparada. Also, thumbs up if you take on making your own nixtamal and grinding your own masa. Tamales are so special, and you can play with different fillings and different meats and different vegetables, and you know, it will hit the spot any time of the year. So I hope you'll give them a try, and I hope you enjoy them.